name's Natalia. I'm a knitter based in Sydney, Australia, and Happy New Year. This is my first video ever, and so I think, given the fact that we are in a new year, that I would go through all the previous knits that I did in 2021. So I thought I would start out with tops. This one here. It's the Boardwalk Blouse by Poison Girls, and all their patterns are very sort of retro 50s inspired. And this one's a cap sleeve boat neck crop, very, very fitted, but it's got a lot of elasticity. So the yarn that I used for it is the one that they suggest in the pattern, and I think you really couldn't deviate from it unless you were going with a wool, because it does require so much stretch, because any kind of cotton yarn like that isn't going to have that kind of elasticity. But then having wool sort of defeats the purpose, I think, somewhat of having a light summer blouse, unless you're in Scandinavia. So I love the pattern. It was really simple, really straightforward, and really quick as well. I think this one took me maybe 2 weeks to knit up. Originally it was done in contrast colors, the original, where the little pearl bumps here would be done in a contrast color compared to the main. But I just wanted something simple without too much fuss, so I liked just the uniform blue. And with this one I went with iris blue. I just think it's a really gorgeous color, really simple top. I like how it's sort of a bit understated but still quite striking. And I love that one so much that I decided to knit another. But this time I used a mixed yarn that was alpaca, silk and linen. This one was by Fibresmith. And I just love the color. This beautiful kind of, they call it Dusk, but it's like a really, like a dusty rose, but with a lot of brown undertones in it. However, being the mix that it is, the alpaca, it's really, really drapey. It does have some elasticity to it, but you can see the size comparison between the two of just how much bigger this one is, just because it's really stretched, even though I used, you know, the same needles, and to be honest, I don't think I actually checked gauge very well. I'm really bad at that. But yeah, it's much baggier on. But I had the yarn and I only bought one skein of it just because I wanted to try it out. And I tried making one of the camisoles by my favorite knits. I think that's the name of her. I'll put it down below. So I tried making the camisole, but it just didn't, it wasn't quite right. So then I thought, well, you know, I can try and do another boardwalk blouse. And I think it was somewhat successful. I will undo the ribbing. Sorry, some really shameless ends that haven't been woven in. I think that I'll undo the bind off just because I made it a little bit too tight and it's got not much give, which is when you're having to pull this over your head and shoulders. That's not, I can get it on, but it's really not comfortable. So that's the only thing I'm going to redo on this one. Then the next one I have is the Novice blouse, Novice cardigan by Petite Knit. This is actually the first one I ever knit, my first cardigan ever. And I did it in Rowan kid silk, and it's gorgeous. I love that I did it quite cropped. The original one is a lot longer, but I prefer everything cropped. I'm very short, and so I think when you're that short, everything has to be cropped. So you just don't look like a child. But it's beautiful, and I really love this one. And I'm really proud of it for the first cardigan I ever knit. Yet to put buttons on. Actually, all of these are missing buttons. You'll see all the cardigans I've made. Because I feel like it's something you want to be really sure of, and I don't know, I should get around to that. That should be a resolution I have for this year, actually, is to find buttons and sew them onto all my cardigans. But at least this one has all its ends woven in. And if I could find it, when I originally knit this one, I really played yarn chicken. I think maybe by the time I bound off, I probably had maybe just about a meter left, and they were held double as well. So I was really playing with fire on that one. And I tend to do that with my projects. I'm a very thrifty person. I hate wasting, and even though I can use the scraps, I just feel like they'll sit around, and I just like to use up as much as I can. And that was the same for the next one, which is my Belmont cardigan. This one's a pattern by Gudrun Johnston, and I knit it out of Tukuwool fingering wool in their Mantu color. This one I didn't gauge, I didn't do a swatch, and I think I knit it a few times and I kept ripping back because something about this wool, it tends to stretch a lot, and it was just too big. It was several sizes too big, and I think by the third time, because first I would cast on and I would knit, and then I would make a mistake with the lace, and then I would rip back. And so on my third attempt, I just went stuff it, and I sized down several needles, and so it does fit. It is quite snug, as you can probably see. So I think buttoning it up, while possible, is probably better left to just be left open. But it's gorgeous, and this is my first time using such rustic feeling wool. And at first I thought it was really scratchy and I really didn't like it, but I've really grown to love the feel of natural rustic wools. So with this one, I think it's another gorgeous one. It's probably one of my favorite things I've knit. And probably my most proud knit, I think. I think the lace is just gorgeous, the 3/4 sleeves, and I saw it originally on Bull & Vine's channel, and it was her who also used the Tukuwool, which inspired me to get it from them directly. And the shipping was great. I'm in Australia, as I mentioned, if you can't tell by my accent, and I think for 4 skeins of it, and the shipping to Australia was maybe 100 AUD, a little bit less, around about that, which I think is an amazing price. The customer service was really good. So yeah, that's my Belmont. My next cardigan, similar to the linen silk alpaca yarn, is an example of really poor yarn choice for a pattern. So this one is the Seasons cardigan by Ozetta. Yeah. This is really shameful. I haven't washed it, and I think there's even some food stains on it. I wore this thing everywhere. Now that we're getting into summer, we're really in the heart of summer in Sydney, I've not really been wearing it, but we had a pretty cool winter that stayed around quite a while, so I have been getting quite a lot of wear out of it. Very baggy and oversized. These nice little balloon sleeves. Once again, no buttons. I did have stitch markers on here for ages, marking out where I need to sew them on. And I even went out to supermarket with the stitch markers on. But it still didn't prompt me to get buttons and sew them on. But with this, when I was knitting it up, it was beautiful. The fisherman's rib was really detailed. It still shows decent detail on the inside. But the first issue was when I blocked it, the whole ribbing just fell flat. And I think the choice of yarn really led to that. So for this one, I used the Malabrigo worsted, which is a single ply yarn. So I think it's probably not the best for stitch definition, and maybe not the best for just garments. You can see how much it's already felting on here, and especially at places, that get a lot of wear, like around the elbows. That's probably the worst. But that started happening pretty quickly. So I still love this cardigan. I think it's a beautiful pattern. Really, really comfortable to wear. I mean, the yarn is so soft. It's like a cloud, but I really wouldn't wear this out of the house anymore. It's just too ratty. But aside from that, this is a wonderful pattern. Some parts of it were a little bit confusing in how they were written, but I think she's a fairly new designer, so maybe, I don't know, trying to kind of work those kinks out. But it's a Raglan, let's see, Raglan construction, and it starts with a provisional cast on at the neckband. And yeah, I found it quite simple. Once you had sort of, the most complex part really is the top section of any cardigan or sweater. And I think that's what I love about top-down ones, is it feels like you get the hardest part out of the way and then you can just go into autopilot and knit the rest. Whereas with the Belmont, for instance, that was a bottom-up construction. And so I feel like you're doing, maybe not for the Belmont because the whole thing was a bit complex throughout the entire pattern, but I like finishing on sort of mindless parts because you're tired and you just want to maybe get it done if it's more of a product knit. And this will be this sweater I made, and I made this for my boyfriend for his birthday. We're both June babies, and so our birthdays fall in winter here in the Southern Hemisphere. And this one is the basic Raglan pullover by Locatelli. And same thing, this one is top down, and so I feel like you just get to, go to the body and just knit, stockinette in the round. And so it's a bit tedious, but at least I feel like, this whole pattern was very simple. I think this would be pretty good for a beginner. Even put a little tag of mine in here. So that's this one. Really soft. We went into the big yarn store we have in Sydney called Morris & Sons, and he and I went in together and he got to pick out his favorite yarn, which was nice because he got to sort of feel around and I guess you really appreciate the variety that there is. So he went with something super soft, which was the Rowan Alpaca Soft in a DK. And I think it's just in the classic brown color. So it's sort of this brown, but it does have flecks of white through it. And the reason I really like this one is because we have two very fluffy ragdolls and their fur gets on everything. So, which I'm fine with, because I usually wear white anyway, so it doesn't show, but he wears all black, and so it shows on absolutely everything. So I feel like by having the white already in this, it kind of camouflages all their fur that's covered in it. And that one, once again, has gotten quite a bit of use, as you can tell from all the pilling on it. And then last year I also experimented a little bit with hand dyeing. So I dyed up a skein of sock yarn in kind of these festive colours and just in little speckles with acid dye. Not sure how I feel about it, because I don't know, something about all the safety precautions that you have to take. It's sort of, I don't know, like what I love about rustic yarns is that they feel so natural and you feel so in touch with it. But then by using an acid dye on it and having a respirator on and, not being able to handle certain things, it kind of feels like you're going away from nature, which feels a little bit counterproductive. So I want to have a little bit more of a look, I think, into natural dyeing. With that said though, I did really enjoy dyeing this up. And they are tiny because they're ribbed, so they will stretch out quite a bit. And these were just a 2x2 rib, simple basic sock with a fish lips kiss heel, which I made just in time for Christmas. And I've made a few socks this year. I made one pair that I won't show because they look horrendous. But I made them, it was my first pair of socks I ever did, and it was with some just leftover stash yarn. I think it was by Derum Natura, something like that. But it was a wool and silk blend, mostly wool, maybe 90% wool, 10% silk. And I walked through the heel in about a week. And that was even just wearing it around the house, not even going out. So I've learned the importance of getting proper sock yarn. And I would like to experiment, I think, this year as well with trying some 100% wool yarns. Maybe trying something with a worsted ply and something a bit more sturdy, like not a merino, maybe BFL or something like that. So these are my little Christmas socks. And then the last thing I'll show is a market bag that I made. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. It's called the Girlfriend Market Bag by Laura Spradlin. And I had this yarn that I bought, which was Billie Jean by Wool and the Gang. So it's just a recycled denim fabric. And I bought it just because I thought it was cool, and I didn't really have a plan for it, and it's been sitting in my stash. I originally made a bralette out of it, and it was awful. It had no give because it's cotton, and it was just bulky and didn't really fit me very well. It was when I first started knitting and I didn't really understand, the appropriate weight of yarn for a project or material or anything. I just bought yarn that I liked the look of, that I thought was, interesting. So I had 2 skeins of this sitting around, and so I just searched, I'm like, I need something to use it up because I'm not going to use it for any garments, and that's really what I'm mostly interested in making. So I found this bag, and it's just a very simple, kind of, I don't know if you call that eyelet or just mesh. And I thought it'd be good for the beach, maybe sand will escape through it, and just keep things in there. To be honest, I'm just glad that I was able to use up the leftover yarn, which I think is, such a generous thing that people do by putting patterns up on Ravelry or anywhere for free. People who put information out there are like little angels. So that's everything I made in 2021. There was a few other things like some accessories that I made. So there was a few beanies I've given to family members, headbands. There are some more socks, but they've been really well worn, so I think it's not really the most camera friendly thing to show. And that's about it. I think maybe with my next video I'll chat about what my goals are for this year, like what my knitting plans are, because I've got quite a few things on the radar, and I want to sort of expand my repertoire. So if there's anything that you'd like me to talk about, just leave a comment below. Thank you.
Meow, meow.